I am Ibrahim Traoré, and today I'm tearing down the walls of silence. Those were the words that shook the world. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's fearless leader, issued a 72-hour ultimatum to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A deadline to respect Africa's voice or face consequences. But when the clock ran out, Tel Aviv stayed silent, defiant, dismissive, as if Traoré's words were just dust in the wind. But what happened next? It wasn't just a response. It was a global reckoning that left jaws on the floor, from Jerusalem to Johannesburg. Let's break it down. Rewind to 72 hours earlier, when the world stood on the edge of a seismic shift. In the heart of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's vibrant capital, a historic summit convened under the blazing sun. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's unyielding leader, strode to the podium before a coalition of 20 African and Caribbean nations, their flags a mosaic of defiance waving in the breeze. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a declaration of sovereignty, a line drawn in the sand. Traoré's voice sliced through the room like a blade, sharp and unapologetic. "Mr. Netanyahu," he said, his gaze steady, "within 72 hours, Israel must acknowledge Africa's sacred right to choose its alliances, halt its economic overreach in our nations, and commit to ending destabilizing actions across the global south." The words landed like thunder, reverberating through the hall and beyond. This wasn't just about Burkina Faso. It was about a continent exhausted by centuries of being a pawn in global power games, tired of foreign powers dictating terms, siphoning resources, and ignoring voices. Traoré spoke for nations weary of being sidelined, their dignity trampled by deals that enriched others while leaving their people in the dust. His demands were clear: respect Africa's autonomy, end exploitative contracts that drained billions from the continent, and stop actions that fueled instability in regions already scarred by conflict. The summit erupted in applause, delegates from Jamaica to Zimbabwe rising to their feet, united under one banner: enough is enough. But in Tel Aviv, Benjamin Netanyahu didn't flinch. Israeli state media sneered, labeling Traoré's ultimatum empty rhetoric and the posturing of a minor player. Western outlets from London to New York barely gave it a footnote, dismissing it as a fleeting headline. They saw Traoré as a young leader punching above his weight, a firebrand whose words would fade like smoke. The world watched as the clock ticked closer to the 72-hour deadline, each second heavy with anticipation. Yet Tel Aviv offered nothing but a wall of silence, a calculated snub that reeked of arrogance. Netanyahu's government seemed to believe Africa's resolve would crumble, that Traoré's bold stand was a stunt destined to fizzle out. They were wrong, dead wrong. As the hours dwindled, whispers grew in capitals across the continent. From Accra to Nairobi, leaders and citizens alike began to rally behind Traoré's call. Social media buzzed with hashtags like Africa Rises, as young people shared clips of his speech, their comments blazing with pride. This is our time.
You want to lose weight in 30 days? Check this out.
I like to do a lot of cardio to burn some fat.
Wrong. The world underestimated the fire in Traoré's words, the weight of a continent's awakening. While Netanyahu and his allies dismissed the ultimatum, Africa was preparing to act. The stage was set, the deadline loomed, and Traoré's next move would prove that silence from Tel Aviv was not just a mistake. It was the spark that would ignite a global reckoning. At exactly midnight GMT, a broadcast ignited from Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's pulsing capital, like a flare in the night. No fanfare, no flags, no pomp. Just a stark black screen that faded to reveal Captain Ibrahim Traoré, clad in his green military uniform, standing alone under a single spotlight. A lone microphone stood before him, a symbol of a continent's voice ready to roar. His face was calm, his eyes burning with resolve, his voice steady as tempered steel. "We offered dialogue," he began, each word deliberate, cutting through the silence. "We offered respect. You chose silence, Mr. Netanyahu. Now we choose action." The world froze, hanging on the edge of his next words, as Traoré unveiled 3 declarations that sent shockwaves rippling from Africa to every corner of the globe. First, he declared the immediate suspension of all Israeli economic operations within Burkina Faso's borders, mining contracts that funneled billions to foreign firms, tech deals wiring cities with surveillance systems, security partnerships, arming local forces, all frozen with a single, unyielding decree. Stock markets stuttered as investors woke to the news, their portfolios shaken by the audacity of a small nation's stand. "Our wealth belongs to our people," Traoré said, his voice unwavering, "not to those who exploit our trust." Second, he announced a summit of 12 African nations to forge the Sahel Alliance, a bold new bloc to counter foreign influence. Mali, Niger, Chad, and others were named as founding members, their leaders ready to unite against the strings of Western and Israeli agendas. "We will build our future," Traoré proclaimed, "free from the shadows of external control." The vision was clear, a coalition rooted in self-determination, a beacon for nations tired of being pawns in global chess games. Third, in a move that stunned diplomats worldwide, Traoré called on every African nation hosting an Israeli embassy to reconsider their diplomatic ties, not with threats, not with ultimatums, but with a principle carved in stone. No nation has the right to trample our dignity. His words were a clarion call, urging leaders to choose sovereignty over submission, unity over division. The broadcast closed with a line that's now seared into the continent's soul. "Our deadline was not a demand, it was a promise we will keep." As the screen faded to black, the world felt the tremors. Social media lit up with clips of Traoré's speech shared by millions, hashtags like "You Sahel Alliance" and "Africa Unbowed" trending in hours. From dusty villages to urban hubs, young Africans whispered his words, their hearts swelling with pride. In capitals far beyond, leaders and analysts scrambled to grasp the magnitude of what had just begun. Traoré hadn't just spoken, he'd shifted the ground beneath the global order, and the aftershocks were only starting to roll. By sunrise, the world was reeling, caught in the aftershocks of Traoré's midnight broadcast. The spark from Ouagadougou had ignited a firestorm, and no one, not even Benjamin Netanyahu, could look away. Within hours, Niger, Mali, and Senegal recalled their ambassadors from Israel, their statements ringing with defiance, echoing Traoré's call for dignity. Ethiopia and Ghana delivered their own blows, halting Israeli infrastructure projects, railways snaking through rural heartlands, dams powering urban dreams, tech hubs wiring the future, all stopped cold. The economic ripples hit Tel Aviv like a tidal wave, with Israeli firms scrambling as contracts worth billions evaporated overnight. From Dakar's sunlit boulevards to Cape Town's vibrant squares, young people flooded the streets, their voices a thunderous chorus. Flags of every African nation danced in the wind, signs blazing with bold declarations. Africa stands tall. Our voice, our power. Dignity is non-negotiable. In Lagos, students marched with banners reading Cash Traoré Uprising, their chants of his name echoing through concrete canyons. Social media became a battlefield, with the hashtag trending in 30 countries, amassing millions of views as clips of protests, and Traoré's speech went viral. Young Africans posted selfies with captions like, "We are the promise he kept," their pride palpable, their resolve unshakable. In Jerusalem, Netanyahu's government was in chaos. A leaked audio from a closed-door cabinet meeting, shared by a rogue aide, captured the prime minister's voice. roar with disbelief. We thought he was bluffing. This is no longer just Burkina Faso. It's a fire we can't contain. His advisors paced. Diplomats burned the midnight oil, but the momentum had shifted. The African Union called an emergency session to discuss the Sahel alliance, with whispers of a new continental bloc that could redefine global alliances. South Africa's president issued a searing statement, praising Traoré's unwavering courage and vowing to stand with Burkina Faso. Even in Latin America and Southeast Asia, leaders took note, murmuring in private, "If a small nation like Burkina Faso can shake the world, why can't we?" The EU, caught off guard, issued a tepid call for dialogue, while France, ever cautious, urged restraint. But no one dared criticize Traoré directly. Why? Because this wasn't just a speech. It was a movement, a spark that was spreading faster than anyone could have predicted. From Nairobi to São Paulo, the global south began to stir, inspired by a leader who refused to beg for respect. The question haunting Netanyahu now wasn't just how to respond, it was whether he could stop the blaze Traoré had ignited. This was no longer about one ultimatum or one nation. It was a reckoning, a new chapter where Africa's voice would not be silenced, and the world was waking up to a power it had underestimated for far too long. This is bigger than one man, one nation, or one moment. It's a wake-up call for a world that's ignored the global south for far too long. Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't just speak. He lit a fuse that's burning across continents, from the dusty streets of Ouagadougou to the bustling cities of the global north. His defiance, his unyielding stand against Benjamin Netanyahu's silence, has cracked open the fault lines of a global order that's taken Africa's voice for granted. Did Netanyahu underestimate Traoré? You bet he did. The Israeli Prime Minister thought he could brush off a young African leader, dismiss his ultimatum as noise. But now, with ambassadors recalled, projects halted, and millions chanting Traoré's name, that miscalculation is a firestorm he can't control. This isn't just a diplomatic spat, it's a revolution in motion, a seismic shift that's rewriting the rules of power. So where do you stand? Would you have stood your ground like Traoré, staring down a global giant with nothing but principle and courage? Or would you have played it safe, bowing to the pressures of a world that demands silence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear your voice. Tell us where you're watching from, Lagos, London, São Paulo, or somewhere else entirely. Is this the spark of a new global order, where the global south rises to demand respect? Or is it a fleeting moment that the powers that be will try to snuff out? We want to know what you think, because this story isn't just Traoré's, it's ours. It's the story of every person who's ever been told their voice doesn't matter. If you felt the fire in Traoré's words, that unshakable resolve that turned a deadline into a promise, smash that like button to show the world you're with him. Share this video with your friends, your family, anyone who needs to see what happens when a continent refuses to be ignored. Subscribe for more raw, unfiltered breakdowns of the moments that are shaping our world, because we're not just reporting history, we're witnessing it unfold. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter, because this movement is only growing. From the Sahel to the streets of every capital, young people are carrying Traoré's message forward, chanting, "Africa stands tall," and proving that dignity is non-negotiable. This isn't just politics. It's not just a headline or a trending hashtag. It's a call to every corner of the globe to rethink who gets to set the terms, who gets to be heard. Traoré's promise wasn't just for Burkina Faso, it was for every nation, every person ready to rise. So, join us. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Be part of this revolution in motion, because when the global south speaks, the world has no choice but to listen.